bike ride with Lance Armstrong on Friday.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Who do you think will
Yeah.
win?
It's leisure, so I'm glad about that. It's called the Tour to Tucket.
Which does not sound weird at all.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's insane though that he's doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's part of the Nantucket Project. He was a guest last year and did it last year, and it was so popular they wanted him to come back and do it.
That's pretty cool. It's good that he's willing to do that as well, because a lot of people get a little bit funny with stuff like that. You know, a lot of sports people, they're like, well, you know, this is like a busman's holiday for me, so I kind of like that he's able and willing to do that.
Well, you know what? He's kind of trying to make amends in his life, so I think this is part of it.
Yeah. Those asthma drugs.
Yeah.
They get us all, right? Don't say that to him. And if you do, it's not come from me. Say it's come from Cam. He can get away with it. Look how good looking he is. Oh, dear. Well, good to see you. You've been absent for a while. How are things? You good?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. No complaints.
Good. I'm glad. Well, we'll dive in. I'm going to come to you first, actually. How's it going? What's happening? Wins, challenges? We're talking tomorrow personally, but what's the overview?
So I just did my TED talk, which is a TED style talk. I did it Friday. Went really well. Got a lot of really great validation from people. So that was good. And the audience was only 65, but there were global people in that 65. So that was a win for me. And we could only use images. So my branding stuff's in process, but that was on hold a little bit to get the slides for this really crisp, and it was worth it. Branding is still in process. I leave for Nantucket on Wednesday, and I'll be there till Sunday. And also, while I was in Vermont, which is where the talk was, there was a woman there who lives 15 minutes from me who said, had I known about Andrea, I would have used her on Wednesday. So wow. I will be collaborating with Andrea going forward because she lives so close by to me. And that's in the appreciative inquiry space. So that was pretty cool. Got some leads on more family type stuff, programming to do in Canada. So again, all fantastic leads happening at once. We'll see where it all goes. Had an interesting experience yesterday, Rick. I went to Ben & Jerry's in Burlington, and it was Gay Pride weekend, I guess, in Burlington. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to these two guys in front of me, and they started telling me that the one guy just moved to Burlington to be a caregiver for the other guy's mother-in-law. And long story short, we started talking, and the guy revealed to me that he was trans and that the other guy was gay. And that I said, well, my friend has a really amazing podcast. And I told him about it. He said, oh, yeah, I've heard of it. So I said, well, cool. You got to tune in.
Wow. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Branding's coming along. It's looking good, and lots of leads coming in.
Good. And how are you feeling with everything everything sitting with you, all these, positive psychology, appreciative inquiry, everything? Are we feeling tight on everything? Feeling good?
Yeah. Good. I really feel like my tribe is in appreciative inquiry, but that is also influenced by positive psychology. So it's a nice gelling.
Good. Looking forward to talking about that tomorrow, and having a good chat through everything. Then, that's good. Well played. Thank you very much.
Exciting stuff, because you're getting out there, you're getting known. The networks are starting to work.
Yeah.
Good stuff, and you haven't even published your first book yet.
No, but I feel it bubbling over, and I made a connection with a guy who is publisher marketing kind of guy in the appreciative inquiry space at this event, and he has relatives that live near me, so he wants to connect more.
Like that. Like that a lot. I want to kind of chat through the networking. It's good. It's a good point that you've brought up there, Cam. Tomorrow, just with you, Andrea, just chat on the networking front, because that's something that was going really, really well for you. So keen to look at not necessarily what's happened, but the opportunities next week when you go.
I'm leaving Wednesday. Yeah.
Oh, this week. Oh, crap. That's crazy.
Yeah, I leave in 2 days.
That's come around.
Yeah.
Cool. No, we'll chat on that tomorrow then. Good timing. Cool. Rick, I'm going to come to you and see how your week's been. Wins, challenges, what's going on? How's the men and masculinity side of things going? What's been cracking? Anything?
Well, nothing's really changed since we talked on Thursday, so I've just been busy. But there's not much new to report. I'm going to spend some time after we get off this call, because Drew and I have a call this afternoon to work on some of the corporate stuff again. So I got to spend a little time thinking about what's next there, and that's about it. I mean, I didn't work any this weekend, so mostly just moving it forward and seeing what starts to land. That's really where we're at this point. So
cool, man. That sounds good. Well, it's nice to have a weekend off as well. Like you said, we only spoke on Thursday, so that's all good.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Cam, what about you? How are things?
Ditto.
How are you getting on with Rick? Not this Rick.
Rick just gave my report.
You did not have the weekend off. Don't give me that. Cam does not have weekends off.
Yeah, I actually did. Yeah.
Really? Good.
Yeah, Saturday with the wife, the whole day. Didn't do anything in the office. And my grandson came over yesterday, 3 months old now, and
wow,
we watched football and had
that
nice dinner. Oh, it was great. It was great. So I did take some physical time away, but never take mental time away. And I tweaked a few things. Literally, I snuck some time to get things done to move some things forward. Question mark for you, and I just wanted to share this with you. When I asked you guys to change my site to HTTPS, all of a sudden my Spreaker thing, I got all these duplicate shows.
Yeah, that'll be Spreaker pulling in probably the feed.
The new feed. I mean, it actually took me time to figure it out, and I think there's a switch in Burberry or whatever it's called, something about 100 episodes or something like that, and that's what it felt like. I had to go in and erase about 100 duplicate episodes.
That's probably Spreaker not recognizing the redirects, that's all.
Anyway, in case it happens with anyone else, that's all. I just want to share that with you. But
thank you very much. It's a little bit weird though, that.
Yeah, nothing else is going on. And how is it going with Rick? Better.
Good.
Better. Rick has his. Rick doesn't. I need Rick to be slower. And again, I can continue to tell. I think I told you guys this Thursday. I keep saying the words "own it," Rick. You have to own it. And when he makes a mistake, then I say, Rick, you didn't own it. And some of his mistakes are getting to the point where the first letter of a person's name isn't capitalized, and some of the links are wrong. And this morning, another example, we sent to a new release this morning to the person who was on the show, and he got the link wrong. It's like those are basic 101s. And anyway, it frustrates me that he can't get some of the core basic stuff right. It's been how many months now? I think 4. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to crush his spirit, yet I want to teach him how to be better at what he does. So we will have our weekly chat this week, and we'll go over a few things. He's got 3 kids, another one on the way in 30 days or less. A cyclone hitting the Philippines. So I do have a soft spot in my heart for shit like that. And so.
Soft spots are always a problem.
And so but I'm not. I don't give him a pass.
Yeah.
I understand that he's got responsibilities and issues, but I also have a brand that he is very much working with and helping to build. And those mistakes they hurt.
Okay, well that makes sense. Yeah, just it's a funny one, isn't it? Because you've got to kind of draw the line somewhere, but it's when and where do you draw it? And you kind of you were in a vulnerable position with him having a new kid in 30 days time. You're like, that's going to impact you, but at the same time, you want to be the villain of the story with it. It's you've got quite a fine line there. That's an awkward one. That
yeah, I know
that is an awkward one. I don't know how you get around that. To be fair,
I know.
Okay, Rick, I was going to ask you on the coaching side. Anything else landed? I meant to ask you as part of your session and your wins and challenges. Anything else landed on that men and masculinity side coaching or new signups?
Nothing else at this point. So
okay. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to chat about today was just talking about attracting people to come in to the brand and start to engage with it. So we talked about over the last few weeks, last few months actually, we talked about like Andre with the can you get 100 days worth of emails? Can you onboard people in such a way? Rick and Cam, we talked last week about a few things really, mainly about kind of cash flow stuff and how you set that up. I don't know if you've done anything on that side of things, but I wanted to kind of discuss kind of making a little bit more noise without doing really any more work. And what I'm starting to see is that a lot of people are doing like disproportionate amounts of work to get not anything really back in the way of traffic or whatever you're measuring. So Rick, this is probably quite pertinent for you at this point because you kind of get on that hamster wheel. We've talked about it, you and I, about you producing your show, you're producing the podcast, and kind of like, what's the point of doing it? Is it worth doing the interviews? We change the format up a little bit. We'll maybe go short form and so on and so forth. So it's kind of a, like, how do you get off that wheel but generate enough traffic to pull people in? One of the things that I've been thinking about from our side internally and thinking about for my own stuff, and like with my own stuff, I'm doing a lot of stuff. I still do the daily podcast, and I still do a good long form monthly blog, which is usually a couple of thousand words, maybe a little bit more. But it's trying to figure out what the best use of your time is, and trying to figure out. So for you, Cam, let's say that you wanted to add an extra 100 downloads per episode. Like, how would you go about that? What noise do you need to make in what places? And Rick, if you wanted to add another, let's say just 10 people to your free sessions on Facebook that you've added, like what would you do to get those people in? How do you get those 10 people? How do you get the 100 in? Andrea, how do you get 5 more people to turn up at an event that you're doing, or 10 more people to turn up at an event that you're doing, but without adding disproportionate amounts of work? And it kind of got me thinking about various things, from partnerships and doing kind of more granular tactical things, and more, I wouldn't say more advanced stuff, but stuff that people ordinarily wouldn't do. So as an example of this, Cam, from your side of things, and this is just made up, it might not be the case, but let's say that you find drop-offs, if you can analyze your data and you find drop-offs on your podcast downloads at the end of the month, or, sometimes, and Rick, maybe with you see that the early week show has more people tuning into than the show that comes out later in the week. Like, what can you do to migrate people across from this? The reason that I thought it was pertinent is that we're doing a podcast internally for the Success Academy. So we've got podcastsuccessacademy.com. We're going to be putting a new podcast out for that, which will be called Podcast Success Academy. But the goal of it is not to just be a podcast. It's not to just put content out there and kind of be on that hamster wheel. It's not really intended to do that. It's intended to get people listening. So you get 100 people, let's move 50 of those into the free level of the academy. And then we know that we can move them up through the cycle, so we're putting them in there. So it's really some kind of tactics that you can use to kind of dangle the carrot a little bit And Rick, you might be able to do this, or Cam, you might be able to do this. And the example that I use is this Academy show. So, for example, the goal of this is to create more content inside the Academy. So behind the free wall of the Academy. If you've got public-facing content, then you've got the free tier. You want people in that free tier so that we can guide them up through the upsell process and, get them on live sessions and do all sorts of other stuff with them. So when we create the public content, and again, actually, Cam, this might be pertinent for some of your future thinking, when it comes to the memberships and so on. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to say that the point of this is so that as a free tier member, you get access to the actionable case studies within the Podcast Success Academy. So we'll do an interview with Cam, which we will at some point, and it'll be okay. There'll be an interview there, which is really good quality content. And we'll ask Cam for 3 tips or 3 pieces of advice or 1 killer piece of advice. Like, if you could start your show again, what would be the one thing that you'd change? And there would be that formatted inside the free version of the Academy. So we'd leave the carrot dangling and say, actually, we've given you 2 tips, but the real killer tip, actually, you've got to tip over into a free version and off you go. You can get that tip. But also you'll get a written version of the case study. You'll get an ever-growing list of these tips all put together, which will act like as a playbook, if you like. So I was just thinking about things for you guys around what you could do to help some of that tick over. So, Cam, an example for you, bless you, Andrea, is, and actually for Rick as well, if you think about what we want the behavior to be, if your goal, Cam, is to increase your podcast downloads by 100, that's it. You just want to add 100 downloads. That's it. There's only really a few different types of behavior that you need to counter with that. So let's forget acquiring new visitors and new listeners. Let's just talk about current ones. You just need to stop people dropping off. And we'd kind of talked about this to a degree on our one-to-ones, but what can you do to tease people coming back? In fact, I think it was Steve that I spoke to about this, where you can take people from, okay, this is the Monday session or the Tuesday session. We're going to have extra behind-the-scenes content from this session on the Thursday or the Friday episode, or a blooper, or, kind of like for the record, but it's exclusive to that Thursday show, or a question from the audience. Okay, we got this on a town hall live. We put it out to the audience, and when we said, look, we've got John Smith from Federal Mogul coming on in 3 weeks. What's the question that you most want me to ask? If put your question in the comments, the one with the most likes, I will ask John Smith live on Remarkable Results, episode 400. And the answer will be on episode 401. So what can you do to kind of add a little bit of stickiness to your episodes? Rick, from your side of things, you could actually turn that around. So you could say, do you know what? Actually, I'm going to capture all of the information. So I'm going to ask you 4 times a month, 5 times a month. What do you want me to answer on the Men and Masculinity session? What do you want me to answer? What do you want me to answer? And then I will only answer that on the video session. And then if you want feedback, I'll give my own reflective thoughts on this on episode 50 of the Rants and Raves. So you're kind of keeping people in this loop of content. Does that kind of make sense? Andrew, from your side of things, you actually, if you're speaking on stage, it's actually quite an interesting one. You can almost make this a throwaway thing, where you say, someone asks you a question in the audience and you give them the fully formed answer. But actually, you said, you know what, that's a really good idea. I'm going to talk about this on an episode of my podcast. That's a really great idea. I've made a mental note. I am going to cover this. Go and subscribe. So you're leaving it dangling over. So I guess the way to visualize this is kind of draw some kind of mental boundaries between things. So, Cam, for you, if you're on episode 360 and you want people to listen to 361 or 362 or 363, actually draw a mental line in the content and say, we might not even answer this until 363. We might leave it 3 episodes. Like, try and identify where your troughs are. Like the second Tuesday of every month, or the second episode we release, or the 4th episode in every month is always a down. It's always a down. I don't know why, just behaviorally, it's a down. So actually, we'll get some bonus content. We'll market it for 2 months, or a month, or 3 weeks, and then we'll include it in that dip show and just see what the impact is. the reason that I want to start talking about this is not because it's just fluffy kind of stuff, but ultimately, and Rick, I'll use you for the example of this. You know, you want people on that Men and Masculinity video live stream, and then you want to guide them through to something else, you know, to signing up for something, or to buying a discovery session, or to maybe the free course or the $89 course, you know, whatever we decide to do. You can start to engineer some of the answers and start to actually make sure that the answers are given in the paid for thing or the free thing. You know, so we want people to come into the academy. So we know that we can kind of engineer the content and say, look, we actually have resources for this. It's evergreen stuff. It's, you know, again, use you, Rick, as the example. It's a $90 course. All the questions are answered. And we've got that. It's back there. You just need to go and get it. It's $90, and then they're into your funnel. Because I think what a lot of people will do is they'll create a lot of content that's just really good entertainment content. I was talking about this in a converse way earlier on an interview. Like, it's all right to be entertaining. Like, that's what we want to do. Like, Calm, your stuff's entertaining. It's really good for the industry. But actually, if we're going to start thinking about monetizing through membership or through brand Calm, through speaking and so on, we've got to leave a little bit dangling. But then we've got to tell people how to go and get that thing. So it's almost starting with the end in mind. Like with you, Ricky, you know, if we're going to create this, I don't know, let's call it a 6-module course, map it out, but then start hammering it on the show, start hammering it on the live sessions, where you say, do you know what? A question that comes up all the time is X. Here's a superficial answer to it, but I go in more detail on this in my course. You know, so you kind of draw in the boundary wall, because I think what we all do at times is, because of just how we are, we just want to give as much value as we can away for free. But you need to get kind of paid for that. You've got to get paid for that sort of stuff. So just something to chew over. I just want to throw that into the mix, let you guys kind of mull it a little bit. I can see Calm's brain ticking over and doing things. But just knowing where to put the line, but also coming up with some tactics that you build into your daily routine for your content, where you leave people hanging and giving them the next. A classic example is a paid membership. So again, Calm, let's assume you do a paid membership. You run a contest. You know that all your billing is on the 1st of the month. You announce the contest finishes on the 30th of the month, and you announce the results on the 2nd. You know, it's only simple tactics, but you get the renewal because they want to know if they've won, or they want to get the next answer or the next piece of content, or, you know, so many different ways of doing that. So that's kind of the thought for the day. I'm just going to kind of throw that back to you guys. Cam, I can see you're pondering. What's going through that brain of yours, sir?
Everything that you just mentioned. These are all things that I could be doing and should be doing. And of course, that membership thing is something I want to do. But I like, you know, there was a point where I'm interviewing these technicians, and we're in our 6th release coming up. And I reached out in Facebook with an email address, question@remarkableresults.biz. Got very few emails about questions that I want to ask to the technicians. I don't know why it failed. I probably didn't promote it hard or strong enough, but I do totally agree that I have been thinking lately about engagement, and I don't mean engagement of listeners. Yeah, I always want them, and I need to grow, but I was thinking of my way to engage with the audience, and what I could say in an opening monologue of the episode, and how I could tighten it or make it more focused, or put a question, something out there that actually will take the listener, maybe not who's commuting and exercising and listening, but to have them take the next step, to want to come inside in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I think you've helped me realize that it needs to be something I just can't think about. That's something I actually have to do.
I think, and it's an interesting one, because a lot of the diehard podcasters, you know, would scoff at this. They'd be like, why are you doing this? Like, podcasting is not meant for that. It's not. That's fine if you're going out there to talk about stuff that you love talking about and you're not wanting to make any money from it. But this is just a form of marketing for you guys. You know, it's a great form of marketing, but it is purely a form of marketing. And in any good marketing, you leave something behind the curtain so that people can step in and they can uncover it and they can figure out what is there, what the secret is. But also, Cam, I think I'd maybe play, and I think Rick, again, you've got an opportunity with this, is play with the timed element of it. Really try and dig into the data a little bit and figure out actually, when do people engage more? Like, when do the emails come in? When's that flurry? When do I get engagement, and try and capitalize on that and use it to build some momentum? So if you get engagement, I don't know, let's say that for some reason you wake up on a Monday morning, you've always got a flurry of emails in your inbox. You know that you can probably the last thing that or probably the first thing that you ask in the last episode that you release prior to that flurry will be an ask of some kind. So if you release on a Friday and suddenly every Monday there's always a flurry, that Friday episode's doing something. So at the beginning of that episode, put an ask in. At the middle, put an ask in. At the end, put an ask in. So they try and build on that impetus a little bit. It's just being a little bit mindful of what the behavior is. But also, and Rick, I'll kind of come back to you as the example on this one, you want to build that email list. That's it, ultimately. You want to build the email list, build some coaching clients, build out maybe some of the course sales or whatever you end up selling in the future with the men and masculinity side of things. It's got to be, what you're delivering has got to be quite dynamic, if that is an awful word. But what I mean is that you can't just push people into like an ebook. It's got to be, Rick, I asked you a question on the free session. Actually, you said you'd put it in the course, and this weekend you spent 20 minutes updating your course, which is $90, with the answer to this question or with a thought on this question, so that then you can remarket that. You know what I mean? It's kind of got to be dynamic. Everything's got to grow. It's almost like an FAQs or like an evergreen piece of content. Just because something's there, a lot of people will send people to an ebook or to a lead magnet and to a download that's just static and dead and doesn't do anything. Or you do it the other way. So Rick, again, I'll use you as the example. Every piece of content that you create has got to go through a development process. It's got to kind of similar to what we do. It's got to go, right, okay, here's the point of the content. But what's going to be the thing from this content that gets people on an email list or that gets people onto my free session? That's the bit that we'll leave behind the wall. And that is it's a download or a checklist or a resource or a live session with me or a coaching session. Or, there's something else that's valuable. It's not just every piece of content pushes into this one ebook or into this one thing. It's a little bit more work, but you can put the value behind some kind of transaction, whatever that might be. And Rick, I think it's interesting from your side as well, because obviously you're considering some revamping of the podcast to a degree. There's probably you've probably got a very good opportunity to marry up your written content with your audio content, with your video content, with your upgraded content, your downloads and so on. And actually every week, you've kind of got a package of content going out that consists of blog, 2 podcast episodes, the content upgrade. And it's, it's perpetually building the email list. And I think that's the bit that's missing usually. I think that's the bit that I'm doing all this content, but my email list's not growing or my money's not growing. So yeah, like I said, thought for the day. What are you thinking, Rick? I can see you pondering.
Let me
go ahead, Carm.
Well, Mark, a million things are going through my mind, and one of them was people want to know more from me. They want more engagement. They want to know more behind the scenes stuff. And one of the ways that I always thought that I could provide engagement in the podcast, but yet have someone understand how I feel about things is to say, listen, here's the top. Here are my 5 favorite coach interviews. Here's my 5 favorite this. Here's my 5. And here's a list. Sign up for, do something to engage with the show. Maybe it's your email or whatever, and get this neat new download that I've just created on my top favorites in these 10 categories. Mm-hmm. Okay. I've always worried to do that I would piss off somebody that has become a great friend of the show and say, how come I wasn't in the top 5 of this or the top 5 of that? How do you feel about that?
I think if you carefully parameter things, you can do that. So so let's take that idea and let's take it one step further and then 2 steps further. So you can you can parameter that, and you can say, in order to be in this category, you have to fit X parameter. But to take it one step further, so all that does is that gives you a defensive point. That gives you a stance to defend and a position to defend. But instead, what you can do is you could take all of your content. You could say, actually, do you know what? These are the top 5 episodes of Remarkable Results for brand new technicians. These are the top 5 for experienced technicians. These are the top 5 for shop owners. These are the top 5 for people wanting to exit. These are the top 5 for people looking to recruit an apprentice. So actually, you categorize them, but you're doing it in such a granular way that there are only ever 5 episodes or 10 episodes or 3 episodes. So it becomes really clear. But the really cool thing about that is, back to that point we made earlier, Andrew, about this onboarding. Actually, that becomes really super interesting, because then you can segment people. So I always recommend that people do like a new listener questionnaire, or a new audience member questionnaire. We do it with members and free members of the Academy as well, like a new member questionnaire. All you have to do, Cam, is literally on your website. If you're new to the show, go to remarkableresults.biz/start. I'll give you some personalized recommendations. You answer 2 questions and the site will send you off to the right content. That's pretty easy to do on the site. But the cool thing with that is you can get them signed up to the email list and curate them and say, actually, this person's not just a fan of Remarkable Results. This person's actually a brand new shop owner with 2 years worth of experience that knows what a podcast is. And they're on that email list in Aweber. And then these guys are on this email list, and these guys are on this email list. So as you build your audience, your data becomes more usable and it becomes more useful, because you can say, do you know what? Actually, when I build my membership, it's the same content for everyone. Of course it is. We've got 15 workshops that we're launching with, or 10 workshops. But actually, on the launch email, what I'm going to do is, there's 5 segments of my audience. Let's take these guys, which are new shop owners. There are 4 workshops that are super pertinent to them. So all their marketing that they receive about the membership will be about those 4 workshops. The guys that have already been shop owners for 3 years, actually, the 3 workshops that fit them. So we'll market to those guys with those 3 workshops and drag as many in from each segment as you can. So there's some opportunities that brings there, Cam, I think.
I wouldn't have a clue on how to do that stuff. That stuff has eluded me. I could never figure out funnels or lists or anything.
I'll do a tutorial. Is it? Can you add a tutorial idea, which is how to segment people on your website using Gravity Forms, please? Thanks. There you go. We'll do that.
Thanks, Izzy.
You know what? That's big baller stuff right there.
Yeah, too right.
That's big baller. Just Izzy, take a note for me.
Oh yeah, don't say that. She'll kick my face.
You know what? I just realized that she's your sister, your siblings.
Holy shit! I have literally just realized that right now.
Wow.
Yes, she is. You're definitely my sister, aren't you? Yeah. She says she thinks so.
But I used to think that it was like how you and I say that you and I are brothers from another mother. I thought it was like that.
What,
like,
sister from another mister?
Well, no, I mean. But I mean, yeah, all right. I'm going back on mute. Bye.
Oh, that's amazing. Anyway, Cam, yeah, we'll do it. I'll do a tutorial on that actually, because that is actually in fact, I'll tell you what, I'll do a little mini course on that for the Academy, which will be handy. Yeah,
those are great ideas. I really like that, and I like the idea that you're right. I don't have to say these are my top favorites. The top favorites can be we can refine why they're there so that no one gets pissed.
Yeah, and it's more like I think swap the word favorite for recommended.
Yeah,
we will recommend this based on your needs rather than my preference. I think that's just a subtle switch. That's all. Go on, Rick. Sorry, you were kind of mulling. I could see that.
Oh no, I was just taking it all in, trying to figure out what this where and what this would look like if it really would fit. So
I think an interesting one for you, Rick, would be turning it on its head and actually saying what's stopping you. So you get, you could do something quite anonymous, which could be quite interesting. I don't know what the engagement will be like, but you could say something like, And actually, I'll preface this with the idea that your content is all about inclusion and pre-decision permission. These guys have got to give themselves permission to even consider making a decision before they make a move. That's, what I'm saying when I say that. So actually, you could do something quite interesting where you said, you know what, just here's a form on my website. Go and fill it in and tell me what's the one thing that's stopping you. It's an anonymous form. It's just got a text field on it. I don't even need to know your name. Tell me what that is, and I'll then talk about that on the next episode. So you kind of you're doing two things with that. You're bringing that inclusion, but you're also teaching other people listening, that one problem that they feel like they're having, actually hundreds more people having the same problem. So it becomes this inclusive piece, and then you can push them through to that segmenting or onto a website to capture. Okay, let's segment you by asking what your big issue is, or where you're struggling, or why you find it difficult to make the first move, and just ask them one real simple question. But when it comes to the content, back to the original point, it's sort of a really interesting way you could use this is to make people see that they're not on their own in feeling like they feel. If you could get anonymous info, it would be really interesting to say that, do you know what? I used to think like this, or I know that a portion of you are feeling like you're the only ones feeling like this, but look, I've had this submission this week that says that you're not on your own doing it. Your goal is, what it's like, your goal is to bring everyone together, isn't it? So there could be some quite cool stuff that you could do in there. Go, Raf, shoot.
So, hey guys, I attended a MapCon, Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference this weekend, and it was really good. But one of the things that was really amazing is that I got forced to do a Facebook Live. So like a on-demand podcast that we did last year, which was sort of a fun thing, turned into like 2.5-hour session. And this year we're going to sort of do like a tradition of doing it again. And so it was about a 28-minute live session. And the incredible thing about it is, I got about 5.5 minutes of talking about served. And I focused on that thought process of you're not alone. Could you imagine? So this is not passing out the get one sticker. This was just me talking and just kind of palling around with these guys. I got 3 email conversions to my static website that is still not existent type of deal. And I couldn't figure it out because about 30 minutes after the Facebook Live session went, I started I got the first hit with you got an email submission. I thought, oh, that's odd. I actually haven't served anybody in a few weeks, I don't know, about 2.5 weeks, because I'm kind of doing I was prepping something else. So I wanted to have like a clean slate. It was just a Raphism thing. Mark, you don't know about it, but I'll tell you about it later. Mm-hmm. But it was just this thing where all of a sudden this one email just came, and I thought, oh, that's like a straggler maybe. And then another one came, and then I said, okay, this is odd. And then a third one came. So then, in the next break, I went to the guy that did the live, the show, the live Facebook, and I said, do you know any of these people? He says, I don't know. So we went on his Facebook and we typed in the names. And one was 1 removed from him. One was 2 removed from him. So I was like, this is so nuts. So from this Facebook Live where I shared, you're not the only one. This is you're not alone. It resonated with 3 people that I had, communication from here to the moon kind of deal, right? I mean, I had no connection to these people or no actual viable path to them. So I'm totally resonating with what you're saying there about when you just sort of kind of come out, you're authentic, and you say, hey, listen, you're not the only one, and this is a thing. People say, oh, cool, I need to listen to more.
Yeah, definitely. That inclusion piece is huge, isn't it? I think and that's a really big win for you as well. Just validating the idea a little bit more, and so just kind of distill the point down. I think is just building in almost some kind of curiosity points into the content. So again, Rick, with you actually migrating people from listening to the first show of the week to the second show of the week. That's the simple bridge that you've got to build, and then bridging them to the free sessions that you've got. What can you deliver them that will make them want to come to this next session, rather than just, hey guys, look, I do the next session. I will be there. I will do it. What can you do to actually say, here's why you need to be there, because I'm leaving this thing out of this episode. From your side, Cam, actually, what can you do to maybe even use this to increase referrals? So for every new listener, give us a shout out on Twitter. If you're a new listener, tell me who referred you, and I'll send you both a t-shirt, or I'll send you both a sticker, or I'll send you both a something. I'll give you both a shout out. That's all it needs to be. And just that, like you said, like Raf said, that inclusion piece. But the real core point is building in some distinct points of curiosity, so you can get people thinking, okay, I've got to do something. I've got to listen to the next show. Now, interestingly, the piece missing from that puzzle is figuring out which one of the numbers you want to grow. Because I think you can only really do this with one number. So, Rick, yours might be, I want to grow coaching clients, or it might be email addresses, or it might be free coaching attendees. Calm, with you, it might just be downloads. See that, James? It might just be downloads. It might be town hall attendees. Andrea, for you, it might be actually visitors to the pre-launch subscription that you sign people up on. Raf, people on the email list. So everything that you do has got to be focused around that number. It can't just be like, for example, let's say with you, Rick, that the goal is to increase the number of attendees. Everything that you deliver, everything that you tease, when you unveil the results of it, or when you give away what you've been teasing, it has to be on the live session. It can't be on an email, or it can't be on another podcast or somewhere else. It has to be on the medium that you promised. Calm, with you, if it's on if you were looking to increase downloads, actually, you might want to build a cycle in where it's like every week we'll give you something fresh, we'll give you something secret, or we'll give you something that you can't get anywhere else. And it's a special little 2-minute segment. Andrea, with you, it might be something along the lines of, do you know what? The content that I put out is all via email. So the only way to get these answers to be on that email list. With Raf, with you, actually, it might be in person. Come and see me at this event. Come and see me at this get together. I'll be the person stood next to the fire department truck, and I'm giving out the stickers. That's my little thing. So I think it's worth just considering that. And the reason I started thinking about that, like I said earlier, was one, we're kind of doing a little bit of that, but Rick, in particular, your thoughts kind of got me thinking about it. You're implementing this men and masculinity thing, and you've got some very tangible outcomes that you want to see from that. You want to see coaching clients, you want to see more traffic, obviously, you want to effectively make more sales and tick that sales list off on the paper that you've got behind your computer. And I think without doing these things, you'll just create content that's just noise. I think everyone does, So yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. How's that sitting with you, Rick? I know there's a lot to throw in there, and I know yours is quite an abstract piece, but how's that sitting with you?
Again, I'm trying to wrap my head around what that would look like. The first thing that started hitting me is to link all this together is, from a podcast perspective, is I'm recorded so far out ahead that I'm not sure how it would link together when like today, I'm recording a show. Well, today's not a bad one, but yeah, in a way it is. I'm recording a show today that's going to air on the 21st of September. So the continuity to tie it to something else that is coming up, it's almost, I want to say it's almost more work than it's worth, it seems, because I'm so far ahead in recordings. I've got recordings all the way into November. So to link it to a Friday show that I don't even know what I'm going to talk about yet, there's no way to continuity-wise link those conversations together without it sounding kind of weird after the recording's already done.
there's a couple of ways that you could probably get around that. Obviously, the obvious logical one is just to pre-schedule the sessions as well, the free live sessions. Or the other way to do it, which you could do.
What do you mean the free live sessions? I'm not following.
So you know your live sessions that you do on Facebook. Let's assume that you just want to get people from the podcast onto those sessions. Let's just assume that that's the kind of jump you want people to make.
Okay.
It would be, okay, I'm recording the show that's going to get the podcast that's going to get released right through to November. Actually, all I need to do, I've got to plan all of my Facebooks out and those video shows until the end of the year, so that you can just get in front of and have a schedule in front of you when you're talking to people on the podcast. You say, actually, yeah, you know, we're talking about that on November 12th on the Facebook Live. We are going to talk about that. So you can. It's actually really good to have that if ever I'm doing interviews. I've always got my 7-minute mentor and the Podcast Success Academy content schedule up in front of me, because someone asks me a question that I know that I've answered. I can say, oh, actually, yeah, I talked about that on episode 350. And I just quickly glance over and it's there. Or I'm going to be talking about this on episode 490 or, you know, whatever that might be. So the plan, you would have to get a little bit more specific with the planning, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because it gives you that ability to just focus a little bit more. I do think that's quite important to do, though, to get in front of having a bit of a plan, at least for the next month or the next 2 months. So that might be a little bit of a sticking point for you anyway. The other side of things, the other way that you could do that is to create like a little segment. And again, let's just assume we'll use the example that you want to take people from your podcast to your Facebook Live. If you want to have the freedom to talk about anything that you want on these Facebook Lives, just have a little segment, usually at the end, because you want people to watch the other stuff and before they get to it. But at the end of it, just have a segment which is, you know, you brand it, whatever. And you would say, okay, any ad hoc thing that comes in or anything that I tell people to do, I will cover in this segment. So actually turn up every week to see whether I include yours or not. You know, so that's another way of doing it without scheduling. Cam's spinning. That means he's thinking. I like that.
I have this thought that just hit me as you were doing your monologue. And I thought of this for a long time, but I never figured out how I could create a hook to listenership, to followership, to brand. And I was thinking of having an open mic, using Zoom, basically trying to get more Zoom registrants to the Town Hall Academy, and using that webinar thing, the eventual posting and going live on Facebook, and calling it a monthly open mic. So anybody who wants to come in, who's registered, you know, they come up and I make them a presenter, and I'm on with 10 people, and we have an open mic discussion on issues in the industry.
That's interesting, because the really cool thing about that is that you're going to get controversy from that, and you're going to get a little bit of contrarianism, and you're going to get people that say things that, interestingly, you probably can't say because you've got to be unbiased and you've got to sit in the middle of everything, but they can say under that forum and generate some traffic into that. So that could work with some moderation. That could work really well.
I absolutely have to be careful. It wouldn't be sponsored at that current moment in time, so that would be something open that I wouldn't piss off somebody, you know, if somebody really went wild. And all I would have to do is to say to everyone, you know, this is it's a mature presentation of discussion points, because there are some assholes in every industry that could come on, excuse my French. But I keep thinking that would be a really cool thing to try.
I think it would be, actually. And I think I'm always a fan of doing things that are a little contrarian and a little bit like, oh, no, we're all right to do that. And it's difficult when you are the voice of the industry, because you can't be that person unless you're willing to alienate a percentage, 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever percent. But someone else can do it under a banner that you control. You know, I think that's a very interesting idea. And the other very cool thing with that is that if you get in front of that, I mean, I don't know how you do it logistically because of the way you work with Zoom and the fact it's live. But what you could do is you could say, actually, here's something we recorded 2 weeks ago that we're going to release to the public in another 2 weeks. So you kind of got a month runway, and you start to promote it on the podcast. You say, actually, what did John say?
Oh, you know what?
That could work.
You're right. Do not put this out live.
Because then you've got a John Smith.
I invite him to an open mic recording session.
Yeah. And then someone like, John Smith comes on and says something that blows the industry up, and you've got 4 weeks then to go, you're not going to believe what this guy says about electric cars and blah, blah, blah. There's something quite strong in that.
Literally, Mark, I think I could almost release it inside of the sponsorship if it's controversial, I may not. But if it falls in, and I could always do an edit or two if I have to, just make it be sponsored. I mean, here I am, I'm doing shop talk and geek talk and tech talk. I'm doing all these little mini series inside. Open mic could be just another one.
Yeah. Just put it as a forum.
Carm, I just learned this really neat hack, and Mark participated in it. So Tom Tate from Airweber, about 6 weeks ago, maybe 8 weeks ago now, I don't know, probably further back, they did this seminar, right? You remember that, Mark? You, John Lee Dumas, a couple other folks, right?
Yeah, Amy Porterfield and Jess.
That's right. So big players in this podcasting world, right? So Tom Tate, he couldn't stay long, so I kind of caught him as he was walking out, and I said, hey, listen, I'd love to get a copy of that, because I asked Mark, because I thought it was a podcast websites thing, but he told me it was an Airweber thing. How do I get it? He says, well, we released it on audio and podcast, but we haven't done the visual. But, get in contact with me. I might get it for you. So then I said, yeah, it was really neat that it was a live roundtable, right? So I'm assuming this whole time that it was a live roundtable. And he says, oh, no, it wasn't live. And I said, what do you mean? And so he explained how he did this. And it is brilliant. And I think this would work for you, Karma, for everybody. So apparently, Mark, back me up on this. He recorded you guys independently at some other point or time, just like a normal interview. And what he did is, and he got Mark's 15 minutes of this seminar. He called it a seminar. He got Mark's 15 or 20 minutes, whatever it was, and he got John Lee Dumas 15, 20 minutes. And he butted it back to back. So basically what he did is he actually created this 45-minute segment. But because the human nature, I thought that was a seminar. All seminars that I ever attended are live. I really thought that he, in this moment of time, snapshot 4 big players, and they all married up their schedules, and they were talking at the seminar. So then what he did is that he actually went live. I think he said 2 days later on a Facebook Live with one of you or something to that effect. So kind of, again, that hook, and he brought everybody back to talk about this thing. But I thought it was really neat where he basically said, no, I basically did 4 video interviews, and I just married them up in the way that he put them together. It just sounded like it was live, but it was not live. And he never said it was live. So he said, he was telling me, he never did advertise it as live. He just said that there was a seminar with these 4 people at this time for 45 minutes. Right?
Thanks, Ralph. Yeah. Good stuff.
So,
Mark, it's another thought that open mic could actually be behind the firewall.
Yeah, you could do one once a month, or do an annual event,
and add that to the premium content.
Yeah, there's plenty in there that you can do.
Plenty. I got a million things. I just don't have enough time.
You need another VA. You need 2 VAs.
Yeah, I need 2 VAs. One that could actually write. And but anyway, membership guys, is that the best one that I should be researching?
Mike and Callie are great. Yeah, they're really, really good at what they do. And they're really good friends of mine as well. So if you need anything, let me know. Like Mike.
All right, I'm going to start researching it. I guess it's something I really need to start throwing in the incubation tube. Yeah,
it's not a small job to do a membership. It's the biggest job that you'll probably undertake in the entire business yet. It's
really
anything podcast. Yeah, it's huge. And the learning curve. If you're not tech, the learning curve is deep. But we're in talks with Mike to do something about that. We might be doing something in that space, but I'll obviously let you know. But the platforms, everything that Mike and Callie recommend, podcast website supports it as well. So that's fine. we can work on that.
And Mark, one of the things that I noticed as well is that at first I was like, oh, what, everybody's doing membership sites? But I see it as, because we're here with you.
Yeah.
We're at the tip of the spear with this.
Yeah.
Right. So even I'm a newbie, and I'm not as advanced as you guys, and have actual production going and all that. But it's because we're part of this that we're able to see. I can recognize that I'm able to see at the tip of the spear what's happening, because the Pat Flynn's, the Harry Duran's, the Dave Jacksons, they're going to this membership type concept. And I was like, oh, well, everybody's doing this. Mm-hmm. Well, no, the folks that have reached a certain level are doing it because it's evolving, right? This medium is evolving. The platforms are evolving.
And you do need sorry to jump in, you do need a good audience to it. I mean, a lot of people jump memberships too early.
Yeah.
You know, you need a big audience, in my opinion, to be able to do it. Or at least an audience that's sized well enough that if you've got good engagement, you can make some revenue from it.
Yes.
You know, so it is definitely.
Well, but into that as well is that it's something where, like myself, I couldn't take on that challenge and that burden right now, because then I'd never get anywhere, right? So it's kind of like one of these things where I attribute it to like flight school, and it was actually one of the very positive things that I took away from the conference here. That I said, all right, I'm kind of attributing it to something that I know. What you're talking about right now is like fighter pilot training, right? Well, one of the things with fighter pilot training is they're not learning how to fly. They're just learning weapons tactics. They're using an airplane as an extension of their body as a weapon to attack a target. They don't need to be worrying about the altimeter and how to fly an airplane, where I'm over here in basic flight school, where my full concern is I don't want to die crashing this thing into the ground, right? So
yeah, it's definitely a run before walking thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but it's really satisfying and it's timely to hear this, because I now realize, oh, the reason I'm hearing it and identifying it so much is because we're in these circles, and you're one of the thought leaders at the tip of that spear, and so it's really neat. It's actually really neat that I'm getting exposed to this now, because I'm actually formulating it in what Carm is talking about and what Rick's talking about. I'm actually planting and punting in my mind. All right, I can do this 24 months from now, possibly. I'm not doing it today, but So anyways, just want to throw my 2 cents in.
So if I release a podcast on PW, I could put it behind a firewall. Is that what you're saying?
You could do, yeah. There's a couple of considerations to do with the feed and so on, but yeah, that's doable. You'd have to get into the membership building space first. There'll be some plugins that you need and a few of the considerations.
But if I release, say, for example, open mic on the premium side, and I go to other people, this whole other thing I was talking to you about, Mark, about the Gonzo thing. Gonzo should be behind the firewall. All these other podcasts, if I could find, the money that comes in from membership and or sponsorships could be funneled, instead of trying to create a whole new brand around someone else, just put them behind the firewall.
Yeah.
Put these special shows back there, but they would all be obviously released no different than I'm doing it now, but they have to be hidden.
Yeah, they'd just be behind the paywall. There'd be no feed.
And you have no problem. The tech at PW can do that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, and especially some of the newer upgrades that we'll be launching as well. That we're just always upgrading that side of things.
Are they plugins, Mark, or is it just native to the platform?
It depends on the structure of it. There's a few ways to do that, and it depends on a few things like how you want to manage role memberships and payment gateways, and there's like different paths that you can take with that one. So right,
where
let's
do I find the bandwidth to do that? I don't know.
There's a lot. Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I'll show you some of the behind the scenes if you want.
All right. Thanks.
It can get quite heavy. All right, team. So we're all chatting tomorrow, which is good. We should all be on track for our normal session. So it'd be good to catch up, do the usual stuff. So if you've got anything pertinent you want to chat through, just make a note of it as normal. But otherwise, we'll chat at the normal times. Cool, team. Adios.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.